Hey guys, in today's video, I'm going to help you go from this to this. I made a video about a month ago showing how much slower traction control is compared to no traction control on F122. Now I'm going to help you learn how to turn TC off and how to gain time without it. So how does traction control actually work? Well, traction control works by cutting off some of the power to your engine at some point to keep your tires from losing traction. When coming out of the corners on F122, even if you have your foot on full throttle, you will notice that the car's power jumps up and down a bit. This is the traction control stopping the engine from sending all of its power to your tires and making you spin. So you finish watching this video and you're probably wondering, okay, well, where in the settings do I turn my assist off? I'm quite new to the game. But if you want to turn traction control off, and this is where you will turn all of your assists off, make sure to go to the main menu when you're on the track or the game options on the home page and head to your assist settings. There you can either use full, medium or no traction control. Now, when people talk about how hard it is to drive without traction control on, 9 times out of 10, they actually mean that they're struggling to get good exits out of slower speed corners. And the reason for that is pretty simple. You don't have as much downforce to help balance the car, meaning you have to do all the work yourself. Now, when it comes to not using traction control, you want to be super smooth with your inputs. What do I mean by that? Well, as you can see from the footage on the screen right now, coming out of turn 3 at Austria, you can see that I am slowly applying the throttle more and more as I straighten up the car and gain more traction. F1 cars don't actually do very well when it comes to multitasking on track. That's why when you're braking, you have to lift off as you're turning. I'll let you guys know more about that in a future video. And that's why without downforce, it's almost impossible to be super aggressive on the throttle. So the best way to get better exits out of corners and especially better starts at the beginning of the race is by applying a small amount of throttle first. This is usually around 30%, and then as you gain more traction, you can apply more of the throttle. So depending on what device you'll actually use coming out of the game, it can be different as to how you'll feel if you have more traction. For wheel users, you will feel it in the force feedback when you have more traction, and for pad players, you will get a vibration in the controller usually if you're applying too much on the throttle. And if you're on keyboard, just go ahead and buy a controller, please. Now, one thing you can actually do in the setup to help improve your traction is your on-throttle differential. Now, changing your on-throttle differential can help you get better traction out of corners. The more locked you have your on-throttle differential, the more your tires will spin at the same rate, meaning that you can get better acceleration out of corners. However, this does mean that you have more chance of getting wheel spin when you're coming out of slower speed corners in particular. So if you find yourself struggling to get on that traction, then make sure to lower your on-throttle differential just a little bit, and that should hopefully help you. Now, another thing that people don't necessarily consider when it comes to no traction control is what compound of tire you're on and whether or not it's even in the working temperatures. For example, getting traction out of slower speed corners is a lot easier on softs that are within the working temperatures than hards that are super cold. So what compound tire you're on and the temperature determines how much of the initial application on the throttle you can apply before the car spins. If you're on cold hard tires, you obviously want to be a lot more patient with the car than you would be if you're on softs within the working temperatures. When it comes to the new and improved handling model on F122, the car really rewards those who are patient, so don't be super aggressive with your throttle or your turn-in when you're braking, for example. Tires can really only handle so much power before it breaks traction. So what can you do right now to improve your traction control? Well, the best way to become better is to practice, of course, and build up that muscle memory. I recommend doing 5-lap races in wet conditions. Now, the reason why I say that is because they're quick and it can really help you improve being smoother with your throttle inputs, mainly because you have to be even more careful in wet conditions than you do in dry conditions. Short shifting is another way for you to get better traction out of slower speed corners because it lowers the overall RPM that the car is outputting to your tires. This means less power is being pushed to your tires, so you can actually get on the throttle a little bit more aggressively. And if you're not sure what short shifting is, it's basically when you shift up sooner than the optimal point. Now, the third way that you can become better when it comes to traction control is by simply watching hot laps or track guides. Shameless plug here, watch my track guides. By watching somebody else, you can learn when people are getting on the power out of the corner and by how much during that traction limited phase. Traction control is one of the more difficult assists to turn off on F122, but if you can improve at it, it will gain you so much time, especially on tracks where there are a lot of slow speed corners, for example Singapore. That's why I recommend clicking any of the track guides that you see on the screen right now to learn more about how to improve at each track. Make sure you smash the like button and subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch you guys in my next video.